So this is the final power rankings of 2024, and I know there's only a handful of teams that maybe played two games over the weekend, but there was some movement on the power rankings as we get ready for a very busy week to get the second half of the OHL regular season underway. So let's dive right into it, starting with number 20. It's the Owen Sound attack. No change for them from last week. Their only game was against the Brantford Bulldogs, and they suffered an 8-2 loss. It was a very physical game, too. And the Owen Sound attack losing streak now stands at 4 games. But one positive, Michael Deck, he scored a goal and an assist in his OHL debut. So some positives to take away here for Owen Sound. Coming up, it is a pretty busy schedule for them. It starts tonight at home against the Guelph Storm. Wednesday, they travel to Oshawa. Friday, they will be in Guelph. And then Saturday, they host the Niagara Ice Dogs. At number 19, it's the Guelph Storm, who fell one position this week. The Storm 0-1, and that was a 4-2 loss on the road against the Erie Otters. All eyes will be on Jet Luchenko, and the question is, will he be moved ahead of the OHL trade deadline? Of course, he's right now at the World Juniors with Team Canada, so any trade involving Luchenko cannot be announced until after he is done at the World Juniors. So keep a close watch on Luchenko to see if he does, in fact, move out of Guelph before the January 10th deadline. For Guelph and Owen Sound, they're both tied with 23 points right now. That's at the bottom of the Western Conference standings, 7 points out of the final playoff spot. So it's a pretty deep hole they're in right now, but we'll have to wait and see if they can dig their way out of it. Coming up tonight, they are in Owen Sound. Thursday, they travel to Windsor. Friday, they're home to the Attack. And then Sunday, they host the Kitchener Rangers. At number 18, we have the Peterborough Petes. They're up one position this week. And the Petes, they've been playing better of late. I did catch the game yesterday between Peterborough and Ottawa, and it looked as though the Petes were trying not to lose in the third period. They had a 1-goal lead, but they kind of, backfired on them as they ended up losing that game by a final score of 5-4. So like I said, they're playing better. It just looks like they're trying not to lose instead of trying to win, if that makes sense. Coming up for Peterborough, they're on the road Tuesday in Niagara. Thursday, they will be in North Bay before traveling to Sault Ste. Marie on Friday, and they wrap up the week in Sudbury on Sunday. At 17, it's the Sioux Greyhounds. They dropped 2 positions this week, and it was a rough weekend for the Greyhounds. First, they were shut out 4-0 by the Spitfires, and then lost 10-6 to Windsor yesterday. And they had a 2-1 lead midway through that hockey game as well. Things were looking okay for the Greyhounds, and then it just seemed like no one wanted to play defense anymore in the second half of that one between Windsor and Sault Ste. Marie. But the Greyhounds, they do have a few pieces that could be on the move ahead of the OHL trade deadline. Andrew Gibson, he'll be highly sought after. There's a few teams, especially in the Eastern Conference, that are looking to add to their defensive unit, and I think Gibson could be a good fit, so we'll have to wait and see what happens on that front. Now, coming up, they only have 2 games this week. Friday, they're home to Peterborough, and then Saturday, they travel to Saginaw. At number 16, it's the North Bay Battalion. They moved up one position despite going 0-2 last week. Both of those losses were against the Barrie Colts, but that second game in North Bay, pretty close. It was a 3-1 final. Mike McIver, he actually made some outstanding saves in both of his starts. Shamar Moses looked great on the power play for North Bay. Well, I was really impressed with Nick Wellenreiter. He looked fantastic in both games against the Barrie Colts. And Ryder Cowley, he made his OHL debut Saturday, and he looked kind of comfortable. He's the leading scorer right now, the Milton Menace, and you could see that he does have the weapons and tools in place. Once he becomes more of a regular with the North Bay Battalion, I think he'll be contributing quite often with North Bay going forward. And it does sound like a trade is pending involving the North Bay Battalion. Right now, Anthony Romani back on the ice after suffering a broken clavicle earlier in the season. It sounds like he could be on the move sooner rather than later. So keep a close watch on the North Bay Battalion. I know there were a lot of rumors before the OHL trade freeze, but it sounds like now that the trade freeze has been lifted, Romani and maybe even Van Steensel, that could be the first domino to fall before the trade deadline. Now, coming up this week for the Battalion, Tuesday, they're home to the Kitchener Rangers. Thursday, they host the Peterborough Petes, and then Friday, they visit the Sudbury Wolves. At number 15, it's the Ottawa 67s, down another position. Ottawa, 1-1 was their record last week. They fell 7-3 to Brampton on Saturday, and then had to come back to defeat the Peterborough Petes 5-4 in the third period. Right now they are in the middle of a 9-game road trip, and their record so far 3-2-1 with 3 games remaining. And of course, they're on that lengthy road trip because of the World Juniors taking place in Ottawa. Coming up this week, they will be in Saginaw Thursday, Flint on Friday, and then they travel to Brantford on Sunday. At number 14, the Saginaw Spirit, they're down 2 positions. It's been a tough stretch for the Saginaw Spirit. 1-1 was their record. They had a loss to Sarnia and then a 6-3 win over Niagara, where Carson Harmer had a hat trick and then Zane Parak 3 assists in that hockey game. So a good way to end the weekend before getting set for a busy week ahead. Saginaw, they're 4-6 now over their last 10 games. They really need to turn things around. We know they have the talent, but right now they're on the verge of falling further down the Western Conference standings. Right now, holding on to that 5th seed. Coming up on Thursday, they're home to Ottawa, and then Saturday, they're home to the Sioux Greyhounds. At 13, it's the Brampton Steelheads up 3 spots, the biggest mover this week. For the Steelheads, they only played 1 game, but there were a lot of positives to take away from the 7-3 win over Ottawa. Angus McDonnell back in the lineup after suffering an injury back in October. He also registered a goal in his return. Anthony Paolini, he earned his first career OHL victory, so big congratulations to Paolini. And then Vilmer Ulrichsen, who they acquired from the Guelph Storm, an assist in his debut with the Brampton Steelheads. That was on the McDonnell goal. So some positives there for the Steelheads as they try to turn their season around. Coming up on Tuesday, they're home to Sudbury. Wednesday, they will be in Kingston before hosting the Flint Firebirds on Saturday. At number 12, it's the Sarnia Sting up 1 position. And there were many who wondered if the assistant coaching change would have been enough for Sarnia, and that included myself. But for Sarnia, they had another comeback victory, this time over the Saginaw Spirit, which was a very important divisional matchup. Nick Szerzicka was stellar, a 37-save performance, while Zach Filak posting 3 assists in that hockey game. Sarnia now 4 points behind Saginaw for 5th in the Western Conference standings. And right now they're 4-1-1 over their last 10 games. So we're seeing some improvement here with Sarnia. Coming up this week, Tuesday, they will be in London before hosting the London Knights on Wednesday. And then Friday, they're home to the Brantford Bulldogs. At number 11, the Flint Firebirds. No change for them from last week. For Flint, they snapped Niagara's 7-game winning streak to open the weekend and then lost 4-1 to the Knights. So 1-1, okay way to start the second half of the regular season. They now have points in 7 of their last 10 games, so not too shabby here for Flint. So we'll see if they can kind of continue this momentum, but their schedule coming up this week, not easy. It starts Tuesday in Windsor, Friday they're home to Ottawa, Saturday they're in Brampton, and then Sunday they are in Oshawa. So some tough opponents coming up here, in particular the ones on the road. At number 10, it's the Kingston Frontenacs down 2 positions. For Kingston, they do not like playing against the Oshawa Generals. They're now 1-5 on the season when they play Oshawa. At least there's only 2 games left between these 2 opponents. So some good news there for Frontenacs fans. Although for Kingston, they've struggled of late. They have a 3-4-1-2 record in their last 10 games, and they're 4 points out of first in the East Division. So they've kind of slipped a little bit here. I do expect that Kingston will look to add a piece or 2 at the OHL trade deadline. Maybe one of those teams looking to add Gibson from the Sioux Greyhounds. We'll have to wait and see. But coming up for Kingston, it starts Wednesday at home against Brampton. Friday, they're home to Oshawa. And then Saturday, they travel to Barrie. At number 9, the Brantford Bulldogs, who are up 1 position this week. And what a game it was up at the Bayshore for the Bulldogs. They won the game 8-2 against Owen Sound, and they were perfect on the power play. They went 4 for 4 on the man advantage. Nick Lardis, now 30 goals on the regular season. That actually puts him in a tie with Michael Misa, the Saginaw Spirit, for the league lead. So coming up this week for Brantford, it starts Tuesday in Erie. Thursday, they're home to Kitchener. Friday, they'll be in Sarnia. And then on Sunday, they host the Ottawa 67s. At number 8, it's the Sudbury Wolves. They dropped 1 position this week, and they only had 1 game, and that was an overtime loss to the Kitchener Rangers. And Sudbury, they kept the game close, which was a very big test for them, considering the Rangers, one of the top teams right now in the Western Conference standings. And Sudbury, they do have a .609 point percentage after 32 games, so that's a pretty respectable number right there. So could they look to add at the trade deadline? Because I feel like for the Sudbury Wolves, they're kind of getting overlooked by many, because we talk about Barrie, Brampton, Oshawa, Brantford, Niagara, Kingston, but we're not really talking too much about the Sudbury Wolves. Plus, what do they do with Quentin Musty? Right now, dealing with that broken hand. When he's healthy, does he return to the Sudbury Wolves lineup, or do they move him at the trade deadline to get some assets? I think Sudbury now in a very interesting spot because they've been getting wins and points even with Musty not in the lineup. So some very interesting times ahead for Sudbury ahead of the trade deadline. Now, this week, it starts Tuesday in Brampton. Thursday, they're in Barrie. Friday, they're home to North Bay. And then Sunday, they're home to the Peterborough Petes. At number 7, the Niagara Ice Dogs. They dropped 2 positions this week. And for Niagara, their 7-game winning streak came to an end Saturday in a 4-1 loss to Flint. And then they lost 6-3 in Saginaw. So Niagara, they spent the last 7 games on the road. So they do have a home game coming up. So that'll be nice for them. But they're right now 2 points out of top spot in the Central Division. So still not a bad spot to be in for this Ice Dogs team. Coming up, they're home to Peterborough on Tuesday. Friday, they travel to London. That's going to be a big game. Saturday, they're in Owen Sound. And then Sunday, they host the Windsor Spitfires. So some pretty tough Western Conference opponents on the way. At number 6, I have the Erie Otters. They're up 2 positions. For Erie, they went 1-0 with a 4-2 win at home against the Guelph Storm. But the big news, though, for Erie is that Noah Erliden was back in net, made 39 saves for the victory. So that's some great news there for Erie. Obviously, though, the news of Matthew Schaefer, not as great as he broke his collarbone at the World Juniors playing for Team Canada. So that's going to be a big concern going forward. So do they look to acquire a top defensive talent to maybe fill that gap while Schaefer is away? We'll have to wait and see. Maybe they're another team that'll be in on Andrew Gibson out of Sault Ste. Marie. Like I said, I think there's going to be a few teams here looking for the services of Gibson. But, of course, Erie being a team in the Western Conference, would the Greyhounds look to move him to the East, though? That's a big question mark there. It all depends on the return. So coming up for Erie, they're home to Brantford on Tuesday. Friday, they travel to Kitchener. And then Saturday, they're home to the Windsor Spitfires. At number 5, it's the Windsor Spitfires, who are up 1 position this week. And what a weekend it was for the Spitfires up in the Sioux. First, Joey Costanzo shut out the Greyhounds for his 3rd shutout of the season. They also lost Ethan Belchitz in that game. He was ejected for a check to the head and looking at a potential suspension there. I know he missed the 2nd game in Sault Ste. Marie, so we'll have to wait and see how long his suspension could be. And then in that 2nd game, Windsor put up 10 goals against the Sioux Greyhounds. Cole Davis, a hat trick in that one, plus an assist. Now Windsor, if you look at it, they're the highest scoring team in the Ontario Hockey League with 152 goals for. Just unreal what this Windsor Spitfire team can do. Also to note, Jake Winbill, he won his first career start in the OHL, so congratulations to Winbill. Coming up this week for the Spitfires, they're home to the Flint Firebirds Tuesday. Thursday, they're home to Guelph. Saturday, they travel to Erie before visiting Niagara on Sunday. At number 4, it's the Barrie Colts. No change for them this week. The Colts opened the second half with back-to-back wins over the North Bay Battalion. Dallin Wakely made his return to North Bay on Sunday, and he put up 2 goals in that game. As Wakely, I'm sure, a lot of emotions returning to North Bay since the trade, but he did a great job in the weekend making his presence known for the Barrie Colts in both of those wins. Also, Ben Horebic, he continues to shine with Sam Hillebrand at the World Juniors with Team USA. Horebic now has a league best 942 save percentage with a record of 11-2-1. He has been sensational for the Barrie Colts. Coming up this week, though, Tuesday they're home to Oshawa. Thursday they host Sudbury, and then they host the Kingston Frontenacs on Saturday. At number 3, the Kitchener Rangers, no change for them. The Rangers opened their 3-game road trip with a 3-2 win on the road against the Sudbury Wolves in overtime. Adrian Misljevic, he was the overtime hero. He now has goals in back-to-back games, so not bad there for Misljevic. So coming up for Kitchener, they're in North Bay on Tuesday. Thursday, they visit the Brantford Bulldogs. Friday, they're home to Erie, and then they end the week in Guelph on Sunday. At number 2, we have the Oshawa Generals, another team, no change for them in the power rankings. They played against Kingston, and that doesn't seem to faze the Generals. They're now 5-1 against their division rivals this season, and right now they're 4 points up on Kingston in the division. For Oshawa, they're also riding a 3-game winning streak, and they're 6-3-1 over their last 10 games. So Oshawa continuing to roll along here, trying to catch Barrie for top spot right now in the Eastern Conference standings. And wouldn't you know, they play the Barrie Colts Tuesday. That's on the road. Wednesday, they're home to Owen Sound before hosting or traveling to Kingston on Friday. And then on Sunday, they're home to the Flint Firebirds. So at number 1, again, it's the London Knights. The Knights, they just keep on winning. They won 4-1 on the road against Flint on Sunday, and now they've had four different goal scorers. So they're getting a mix of players contributing on the score sheet, although Evan Van Gorp, he had 3 assists in that hockey game, so not too bad showing there from Van Gorp. The Knights, they're on a 4-game winning streak right now, and they're 8-2 over their last 10 games. We'll see what they can do this week. They got a home and home against the Sarnia Sting. It starts Tuesday at home. Wednesday, they'll be in Sarnia, and then Friday, they're home to the Niagara Ice Dogs. So I know there was not as many games this past week because of the Christmas break, but everybody's going to be playing at least 3 games on average going into this week. So it's going to be a busy one. It all starts tonight between Guelph and Owen Sound, kind of the battle for the bottom spot for the power rankings. So I would expect we're going to see a lot more movement in the power rankings a week from now when we have our very first power rankings for 2025. So that's how I see it from the booth. Let me know in the comments section down below your thoughts, any surprises for you, and what are you looking forward to most as we get closer to the OHL trade deadline. Thank you very much for all your support. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Talk to you soon.